Baravses, hello. I'm Peter Davidian, and here we are in the front room of my home in the Byron Shire of Australia. And I'm just released 3 albums of my music, my instrumental music, and it has a flavour of this region, in the flavours of India and the flavours of Armenia, which is my background. These recordings are part of my kind of recording catalogue, but some go back a couple of years, few years. So I thought to myself, originally reluctantly, that I should put it to streaming sources, because I never have really put this out there to the digital world, so to speak, streaming world. I put together the first album, which I took the liberty to call The Dreams of Dr. Sitarian, because some people have flattered me in the past calling me a doctor of sitar. I went through the tracks and I thought, well, this album, I want it to be a little bit kind of a dreamlike state for part of it, incorporating sitar, acoustic guitars, and basically percussion, some keyboards. It was sort of from an era called Sandalwood Dreaming, which I did some years ago, and I took a couple of those tracks, some tracks from an album called In a Fragrant Garden, reworked them a bit. I put it together, looked at the order, and I thought, oh, this I think works. So that's the first album. And then I had another album called Artsakh. Now, Artsakh is a region in the Armenian highlands that's been in dispute since the Soviet Union times of who actually controls it. It's an Armenian indigenous area for thousands of years, but has always, because of its natural beauty and its resources and its water supplies, has always been a sought-after area. And unfortunately in 2020, there was a serious aggression. It was a war was started by a neighbouring country. But as a result of that, the ownership or control of that area went from an Armenian control to a neighbouring country. Of course, there's always the trauma and injury and casualties, and it affected me in a big way. I had been in that area in 2019, so I started to write music, and what came out of that, I suppose, has a more blues kind of edge to it. I incorporated electric guitar, drum kit, much more, and as a result of that, we have the tracks that now appear on Artsakh. They sort of touch on areas not only there, but also in Armenia, in the south of Armenia, in my ancestral homeland, which is Julfa. There's a track called Julfa in Nakajivan. I originally released it totally as a fundraiser for children that lost their father, basically, in the war, because we lost 5,000 Armenian young men in that war. And I could immediately connect to that because my father was a soldier. He passed away when I was very young. So I come from a similar experience in a way. And then when I decided to do this project as a kind of overlook of my creative work, so to speak, and I thought, no, well, I want to keep that one going. And since that time, there was more trouble in Artsakh, or otherwise known as Nagorno-Karabakh, which was the Russian name for it, the Black Forest. And all the Armenian population has moved from there now. 120,000 people in 2023 relocated to Armenia. I actually went to some of the centres where they were staying. There was families, and we gave them some music, some with some of my Armenian comrades in music, and gave some concerts. And it was just a joy to see a few smiles on the faces. So that was really a lovely experience to be able to interact with them. And I was made very, very welcome. I continue to write more music, record more music, incorporating pretty much elements of the first two albums, but again, a little bit different, I think. And there's some effects in there, there's some use of keyboards. And so I recorded the third album, which I finally called Tatev. Now, Tatev is a place in the southern Armenian mountains which has a medieval monastery there, and it was actually a university, like 1,000 years ago, I suppose. It would be 1,000 years ago. And it's a very inspirational place for me. I've been there a few times, and when I'm there, I sort of seem to travel to another kind of zone without getting too cosmic about it. It's just an amazing place where it is. There's a very deep mountain gorge in front of it, surrounded, well, the times I've been there, they're surrounded by snow-capped mountains. And to be there, it just feels like a very potent place. Like it's an ancient place, pre-Christian as well. It just makes me marvel at how these places were built 1,000 years ago, because I know how cold it gets there. and the tools and the way things are done. And it's yeah, it's just a potent place in the south. And I also wonder whether my great-grandfather, who was an Armenian priest in Persia or Iran, where there's an Armenian community where my family ended up, whether, because I don't know this, whether he actually went there. And that's always makes me wonder a little bit. And the actual track itself, I call Tatev Into Space. The reason being that, and I think hopefully the music evokes that a little bit, is that it certainly puts me into outer space when I'm there. It's like a portal. That's the 3 albums. We have The Dreams of Dr. Sitarian, we have Artsakh and Tatev. Well, the actual music on the album has been played by me because I play various instruments, but when I'm in Armenia, I'm collaborating constantly with musicians there. They're very talented musicians, traditional musicians, modern musicians. So that energy of performing there and collaborating, just I bring it back, I suppose, and because I've recorded those albums here in Australia. And, you know, you're always influenced by what you hear, different artists' recordings, various things. My study of Indian classical music for many, many years is kind of the fabric of most of my recordings, really, whether I'm playing sitar or I'm playing it on guitar or even using keyboards. There's always an element of the raga scales, which is the Indian classical genre. But I've tried, rather than to keep it as traditionally in that way, I've tried to use it in a slightly more unique way, maybe, by using different instruments, combining them in different ways. So the albums kind of all cross over a bit. You know, there's a lot of music there. Often the main melodies, or the theme, if you like, comes out of my study and practicing of sitar. As a sitarist, you know, you study the theory of Indian classical music, because it is a classical music style, and it's what we call structured improvisation. So there's particular sections that you study as far as the scale goes and the thematic use of that scale, motifs, etc. And then you have like structured improvisation, staying within the rules of that particular raga, if you like. So when you're in that, particularly in that, for me, when I'm in that improvisational section, often something will come, like a particular motif, a particular theme, that isn't from the traditional, that's come from exploring it. So it's a bit exploratory. So a lot of it comes from that, playing sitar. Some of the pieces come directly from guitar, and there's even a couple of pieces, obviously, that come from drumming aspect, because I have been playing drums since a young boy. It was my first instrument, and still to this day I still play. So there's a couple of pieces. There's a 6/8 piece on the latest one, on Tatev, 6/8 I called it, that came first from the drumming groove. So sometimes I will just record the drums. And floating, that's another track on that. The closing track is just drums and gongs. So it just really depends on the piece of music. Yes, I suppose I've got a long performance history that goes a long way back to playing drums in all sorts of projects, and then sitar in all sorts of projects, and here in Sydney, and then here on the Northern Rivers, Byron Shire area, and then over the last 6 years now, 2019 to now, I've been going back to Armenia as often as it's possible. And collaborating over there, which I feel it's kind of been a bit of a resurgence for me as I get older. And there's a wonderful welcoming, and particularly for the sitar. I keep a sitar there now, and sitar, everyone thinks, well, it's an Indian instrument, but it was designed by a Persian, which is kind of very close to Armenia, and they're very Persian culture. Armenian culture is not that far removed, maybe through religion, but not once upon a time, because Zoroastrianism was really the main kind of following of people, which was in both places, pre-Christianity, pre-Islam. And the sitar, as I say, was designed by a Persian in India for the Mughal court, for the Persian court. And the Armenians as well have a long history with India, which is even ongoing today. My grandparents were both born in Persia, but went to India to go to school. And my grandfather's father, great-grandfather, was a priest, and he was in India and in Singapore for 3-year terms before going back to Isfahan or New Julfa, where the Armenians live. And in some ways I see that instrument as almost a bridge of cultures. And you find the instrument called a tar in Armenia. There's sitar, which is different to sitar, slightly different, in Iran or Persia. So these instruments are all kind of one family. The sitar's a little bit more elaborate, I suppose. And that's kind of because it was blended with an Indian instrument called the veena. So through that instrument, for me personally, it sort of covers most of my family history, if you like, and my ethnic roots that I'm connected to. I play every day, and if I've got things coming, I practice more, because it's a very demanding instrument, particularly sitar. And it goes back, Ghulam Qadir Khan was a professor of Indian music, and he was a big influence on me. He kind of opened the door for me, if you like, in a metaphysical sense. And I'm indebted to him. He's long gone now. Even before I went to Armenia, I played some lovely concerts with an Indian tabla player, Dave Fernandez, and another Australian tabla player, Rodney Wright, over the years in this area and in Brisbane. In Armenia, more recently, it's been wonderful. I've been doing work for through the Indian embassy there. They like to be involved. We've put on some lovely big concerts in big concert halls there, mixing with some dancing. There's a tradition of Indian dance going on there, and of course Armenian dance is very prominent. And we did some concerts there that blended both music genres, and the ensemble that I was kind of looking after was a mix of both, really. There was like an Indian drummer, there was an Armenian drummer, there was a beautiful Armenian bahul player, flute, duduk, and both Armenian and Indian dancers. I was playing sitar. That was very, very well received. And just last year, I've been working also with Tigran Kazazian, who's a well-renowned oud player, an Armenian that plays oud. So it's fairly unique and it's very mesmerising. Well, I find it as one of the players very mesmerising, and I do love the oud because it's a much more, has a more bass quality to it, fretless, and it's again an old instrument. It's actually the precursor of the lute and the Spanish guitar. This is a beautiful guitar of Stephen Thurston's, who's a wonderful luthier here on the North Coast. It's an honour to play his guitars. And also I've worked with a couple of really nice singers over there, which is usually not my field, but Gergen Davidian's a well-known Armenian folk singer, and we did some recording. And also with Rosanna Sarian, who's a singer of traditional Armenian songs by, there was a gentleman named Komitas. Now Komitas Vardapart, and he was a monk, but his main goal was to gather Armenian folk music. A lot of it was going to kind of dissipate, and he became a compiler of music. He's very highly regarded in Armenian culture, and he survived the genocidal troubles of 1915, and so anyway, so Rosanna sings a lot of his music that he's compiled, and we've been performing also some Sitarian song. We did that last time I was there last year, and intend to do some more this time. And that's also very lovely and well received, because it's a little bit different for the Armenian audience, because they don't hear sitar used in such a way, and they, oh, he's playing chinares, or he's playing garune, a couple of these traditional songs. It's playing it on sitar. So, you know, that's inspiring for me. And, you know, there's a big catalogue of music there, which is another project. So, you know, I'm involved in these sort of collaborations as well. The drums of Aristi Mustidis from Yerevan. Beautiful drums. So there's a bit of this style of drumming on some of the recordings. Just the last few years, and now also with these recordings, there's a bit of, I feel there's a bit of a resurgence, you know. And even here, I've got the little jazz trio atmospherics going that morphed out of a bigger band, and we lost Russell, the bass player, and the original drummer as well. So that's another little kind of project that I've got going here, but we just do that more for keeping our jazz music alive. It's the drum kit set up over there, because it happens in here. All I can say is I hope people enjoy even one or two tracks off all those tracks, if not more. And it's out there for people to hear. Shno haklukun. That's Armenian for thank you.